morning. It's the 20th of June, 2023. I just want to read Psalm 2. Why do the nations conspire together and the peoples plot in vain against the Lord Almighty? The kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, "Let us break their chains and throw off their shackles." The one in heaven enthroned laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, "I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, 'You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will give you the nations as your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise, be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in the Lord." May God give us revelation about what this means. Why do the nations conspire together against the Lord? Right there, it tells us it's a code, it's an answer that the nations are working together. They're working together. And they are the dark force that pushes an antichrist spirit in the world. God uses the darkness to bring us back to him, all of darkness. And so everything we see happening in the world, God shows us here. The nations are conspiring together against the Lord, right? Banding together against his anointed. And then he says, I laugh at darkness because the one in heaven laughs, and he scoffs at them, and he rebukes them, and he terrifies them. And he says, my kingdom is established on my holy mountain. My kingdom is forever, eternally established. And you nations think that you're going to conspire against me. He says to the one who is his son, his true son, his children, ask of me, and I will give you the nations as your inheritance. There is so much revelation in these verses. Thus the Lord is saying, all that is happening in the world, though it is conspired against the Lord through darkness, I can turn it around and actually give you the inheritance of the nations for the kingdom, for my kingdom. So may the Lord show us the depth of what that means and how to pray. But the nations are conspiring together. They're working together, and they are the greatest actors are in the top leadership of the world. Those are the greatest actors, the greatest liars. Then in politics, in government, and in any type of world organizations, those are all the best liars and actors, not in Hollywood. Look into it. Hollywood comes after that, and they are just an entertainment venue for us to see the deception in higher bureaucracy and forms of authority in the world. But I just wanted to speak on a practical note of where we're at in world events, because we are really feeling the crunch here. And, I can only speak for America, but I know that people are feeling financial crunch on all sides. It's coming in from all sides, and it's becoming more and more pressured. And I do believe that that pressure and crunch is going to cause many who have been thinking about and praying about making a move to actually do it. And perhaps abruptly, I was talking about this in last year in 22 about how when 24 would come, many would move abruptly, and that pressure will come on and squeeze people to where they have to make that move for financial reasons. And God is in it. But, we're hearing a lot about a planned cyber attack. And when 9/11 happened, we didn't have social media. So people couldn't share information the way that they do now. And I just want to say something about sharing information. God has allowed it right now for people to share information with one another. It is serving a purpose. And if we don't involve ourselves in conflict online, but instead keep our hearts and minds open to what everyone around the table is sharing, I believe it is God's will for that right now. And it is drawing people closer together. It is humbling people to realize I don't know it all. I don't have all the information by far. I don't understand everything going on. And so God has allowed us to all be sharing at the table of humanity the information. And a lot of it is misinformation, but not all of it. And much of it is useful. And I believe that's God's purpose right now. So we all see in part and we all prophesy in part. And so we all need one another. And that's humbling and it is unifying. It is the body of Christ coming together, or the body, one body of humanity coming together to the table to share ideas, to share information, and all for the glory of God. Everything is for the glory of God. So, I can tell you that the dollar is being sacrificed, and I think we're going to see an acceleration of that. And anything inverse to the dollar, which would be hard assets, will probably start taking off in their value. Now, things have been suppressed like gold and silver and other assets like that purposely. So we have to look at intrinsic value. We have to stop looking at the stock markets because they are not real. They really are just digits on a screen. And unless you're cashing out your money from the stock market or getting dividends from it, it really is just an illusion. Good morning. I'm going to be heading to work soon. So I am seeing tremendous pressure in healthcare and in the cost of healthcare for people. We were seeing it in our own plan and bills we were getting and stuff, and then I'm seeing it with a lot of different people with healthcare. So I think it's going to be very, very important. I think we've been hearing that message, and I'm not even going to get into the what, and the effects of that, because that is accelerating tremendously. If you have realized the truth about that, do a detox, get into groups. All you have to do is type in the search bar of Twitter, detox the VAX, and you can find people to help you do that. But health is going to be so important to take care of our health now, due to the assault on our health, but also due to the assault on healthcare cost. And it's going to cost a lot. There's going to be very high co-payments. We are already seeing that. Very high co-payments. Just to have a test or an MRI or a stress test or the hospitalization, cost of drugs, cost of meds. Taking care of our bodies is essential, primary. And simplifying our lives, I believe, because America is being humbled. And I think there's a lot of denial still in that reality. What has been high is coming down low. It's going to be brought low, and it's the end of an era. The end of an era, and it's the end of an empire. And, empires don't fall in a day. So we've been seeing this since 9/11. That was the initiation of the end of the Empire of America, of Wall Street, of the markets as we know them. And that's, over 20 years ago. So it's gradually, then suddenly. So we're in the suddenly now. We're in the suddenly. And I believe we're going to see many things collapse and many things that have been put into place rise up. The use of a central bank digital currency or whatever system they're going to use is going to level the playing field of settlement of payments, payment settlements. And I'm not talking about paying for, a cup of coffee. I'm talking about trade between nations, the major payment settlement system between nations' currencies. And those nations who have been suppressed and oppressed by the weaponry of the US dollar are now going to rise up. And we're seeing that through BRICS. BRICS started out as those 5 nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But now I don't even know how many nations have applied to become part of BRICS, but it's at least 20. So the nations of the world are conspiring together against the dollar, against the US. And we're seeing it now accelerate tremendously. And how do they get rid of the US dollar? Well, there's a few different ways they can do it, and they're already doing it. But we saw this recent move up in the markets, and I talked about that and how that would probably happen just from studying the markets and knowing how they work. And I don't just mean the markets, but I mean the forces behind the markets. I had a feeling that was going to happen. They trick you. The banks fail. Everybody thinks that the market's going to tank. No, they do the very opposite. So they take the trade the other way. But in God's order, that was a mercy move from God to help people get out, to help them get their stocks back up so they could take profit or at least break even. Many won't take profit or get out because they'll see the markets are going up and they will think everything's fine now. That's the deception. But there's a lot of things we can talk about. We can talk about US treasuries, which are debt, and how many nations may dump those treasuries in one night. There is some kind of a cyber attack. All nations conspiring together, remember, right? Some type of cyber event planned, which would make sense. What could happen? I'm just going to give you a scenario. A cyber event occurs. This video is probably going to not have a lot of views because I'm saying cyber event. Cyber event occurs. The grid goes down, which means I don't think our lights go out and things like that. I think it's the grid of the internet, banking. You can't use debit cards. You can't use credit cards. This is why people should have some cash on hand at home. They should have some food. It's supposedly going to go down for like 10 days. It's going to be blamed on Russia or China. I'm repeating myself because I've talked about all this before. Now, when they spread the V around the world and blamed it on a monkey in China lab, Americans didn't fight back. They believed it. When a cyber attack happens and they blame it on China or Russia, Americans are not going to fight back. They're going to believe it. but some will be awakened and they won't believe it. So if a cyber event happens, the grid will go down, internet will go down, banking will go down. We'll have emergency notifications on our television. Our cell phones may not have internet, but they may have emergency notifications. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get back up. And supposedly 10 days of darkness. This is why you should have cash if you need to get gas in your car or whatever. Cash is going to be king at that point for that short amount of time. After that period of time, and they'll be telling us on the television, the authorities are working together to find out what this is, who did this to America, blah, 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 whatever. They're draining the system and they're going to blame it on other nations. And when the system comes back up, which I believe is going to be done slowly, maybe after 10 days we get internet or we can get back on our banking, I do think that there's going to be a massive surprise for Americans, whether they crash the dollar, they crash the US stock markets, they dump all the US debt, treasuries, which would definitely crash the markets. But they will not allow the Fed or the US government to be blamed for this market crash. That's why they allowed the markets to go up, because it makes the Fed look like they're doing a wonderful job by trying to decrease inflation, and they're still causing the markets to go up, which none of it even makes sense mathematically and is not logically correct. So we know that what the market is doing is a lie. So the Fed will never get blamed, which is the point. They don't want you to blame the Fed. They don't want you to understand who's behind this, that central banks are behind this. So they made the markets go up. And whenever this cyber event happens, it will be when the markets are up, not when the markets crash. People will turn their computers back on and they will be stunned at what they see. And they have been moving a lot of military into America. It seems that people who have boots on the ground, just regular people like you and me, are taking videos. They're seeing a lot of military coming in, tanks, aircrafts, infantry. So, I'm not sure of the depth and validity of this. I'm just sharing the information I've seen in numerous states. So if cyber event happens, people don't have money, they're there to keep things from going into social unrest, to calm everyone down, to basically keep the peace and make sure that there isn't civil unrest. There'll be some type of martial law in place at that time till things come back up slowly. Like I said, things will come back up. People will get on their banking accounts or on their stock market accounts, and they'll see that a tremendous event has happened financially to America. China or Russia is blamed. And then we go into more of a period of time where the central banks are figuring out how they're going to fix this. Now, the system's all in place, and it has been for many, many years, but they play out the script of, we're fixing it. We did start figuring out, we did start putting into place like a system where we would use a CBDC system where we could exchange CBDCs. And that's why we saw yesterday another article from the IMF and the Bank of International Settlements. They've both been saying how they're figuring out a ledger system in order to do cross-border payments between nations and using CBDCs. So we're hearing this. We're hearing all these articles that they're working on it. They're working on it because when this event happens, they'll be able to say, we've been working on it and we're going to put it into place now, slowly. FedNow, which is accounts for all Americans who have a social security number, have already been created. FedNow goes into place in July. If the event happens, it makes it very easy for the United States to say, hey, we actually happen to have a FedNow account for you. Coincidentally, we made these accounts for you, and we were initiating this in July, coincidentally. So you can activate your account, your FedNow account, And we even threw some free currency in there for you. That might be done, to incentivize people. We've thrown some free currency in there for you, just activate it through your phone. Here's how you sign up. So this might be a gradual rolling out of how we all get connected to this system. And, I can talk more about things that may happen, but I'm not really here to prophesy about it. I'm just here to share what it looks like may happen just for preparation purposes so that you and we have less confusion and chaos and fear and, we can kind of, if the Lord has been telling us or giving us direction, we can kind of go in that direction and we can lean into the instructions of the Lord to prepare. It's concerning for those who are in hospitals. It's concerning for those who are, it's going to be hard for people in hospitals because I know when the system goes down in a hospital, it's a real pain. You have to go to paperwork and it's difficult for the staff. I do work in the medical field as well right now, so I know that would become difficult not to be able to be online. I don't know if it will just be in banking. It could just be in banking. I don't know. But it makes sense that it wouldn't be, because that would be too much of a giveaway. So I think for people who need medical care, it will become difficult, and in other fields, but because we're talking about people's lives, I think that's going to be the most difficult area to sustain at that point during that 10-day blackout of the grid. So probably a big surprise coming when the grid comes back up and will be blamed on either China or Russia or both. So that's an event that could happen, very likely. And FedNow is in place for us to sign into our accounts and activate them. So if you just put the pieces together, it looks very likely that this could happen very soon. So I just wanted to share that. And there's a lot of other things we could go into about, the banking, the markets, assets, where our assets should be, where our mindsets, would be best to be at this time, where karmically or spiritually, we would be best to be praying into. I have the hiccups now, so I guess I'm going to stop this video. But all that said, we feel the impending sense that something is coming. And if you talk to even, very everyday people, just with the way financially life is unmanageable for many people now, unmanageable, we feel that something is about to crash or happen because, what are we going to have, a bunch of homeless people everywhere? Something is about to happen. And that main thing really is the end of the American empire and the end of the American dollar. And it doesn't just happen overnight. So even after this event, there's likely still going to be a USA central bank digital currency, but I don't believe it's going to have the same value as the dollar has now. So it could be revalued. I don't think it's going away. I just think it's going to be revalued, which would affect all Americans and American trade and other nations, obviously. So that's it for that. This was just a really practical video, and I'm going to head off to work. God bless you all. See you soon.